There you go. Have you
There we
used
go.
this Zoom meeting? Because it's got so many extra features I'm trying to figure out.
I have, yeah, I use it a lot. I was going back between, personal usage and, UF purposes. You always have to switch in and out of accounts. So
Yeah, I've got it. I'm a
there we go.
licensee personally, and then I've got my UF. But this meeting, don't you have to pay extra for the meeting?
I don't know how that account works. I just know that when I sign in with my UF account, it
It comes
magically
up.
works.
Okay. Well, we were told we would have to pay for the extra for the meeting, and I think we did. So,
Oh, okay.
but it's certainly got a lot more functions. So it's kind of nice.
Yeah. So do you, is there like maybe a list of attendees that already are RSVP'd, or is it just kind of people come and go as they please?
Yeah, it'll be a mixed bag because people view it afterwards,
Oh, okay.
and people also do viewing party kind of things where they'll, it'll show up as one name, but it's really, I don't know how many attendees we'll have. We'll see. I
Sure.
mean, and we don't ever have any way of judging because of that.
Yeah.
I wish we could just say, could you please just put in the chat, how many people are with you, so we could get a
Sure.
count, but
Yep.
we haven't tried to do that.
Well, this week went by fast. How was your week?
Good. I'm so behind on so many things.
Yeah.
And I don't have any idea whether we screened anybody or anything yet.
Hmm. What's the most challenging thing for you, now that we're halfway through the semester, outside of being, behind in general?
Well, the most challenging thing. I don't know. It's all challenging.
Yeah.
Both my classes are online, so remembering that I'm actually teaching can sometimes be challenging.
I'm supposed to be where, doing what? That's funny. Drop my pen. Yeah, we did so much planning and preparation for this week and the material that I looked down and looked back up and was like, oh wow, the week is here.
I know, and then the week was gone, like you said.
Yeah.
Did you get any art turned in?
As of yesterday morning, no. But
Yeah.
Bryn was going to ask, do another maybe call for submissions. But that's okay if we don't get any.
Yeah.
At least people know we're thinking about them.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And that's, this is noon is not at all our normal time. So we'll.
Mm-hmm. What time of the week is usually best for these?
We usually try to do these on Wednesday or Thursday at 6 or 5, but usually 6. We'll have local at 5:30, and then that gives people a time to, get home from work.
Oh, sure.
Everything's changed, so.
Yep.
Well, hopefully we'll have some good live questions too. If not, we can chat about the things we already got.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how did you take action to support your own mental health and well-being this week?
Well, I actually have been a lot more intentional this week about walking. And so finally, when we stopped coming into campus, I stopped getting my steps in every day.
Oh yeah.
Which is a mental health thing for me as much as anything else.
Oh yeah. It's
How about you?
Yeah, I've been fairly consistent through most of my exercise and everything. So more or less, it's been me, just thinking more about like, okay, I'm exercising this week like I typically do, but let's kind of attend more to like what I'm thinking about when I'm coming and going from exercise and get my afternoon walks in and everything. It's hard to leave the computer sometimes. It's always good to say, hey, the computer work will always be there. Just take 15 minutes and we can come back.
Hi, Melody.
Melody.
Hey, Beatrice. Lisa will probably be joining us right about noon.
Okay.
Hello, Lisa.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi there.
Thanks again for doing this.
Sure.
We have matching backgrounds here.
All right.
Yeah, it's very coordinated.
We'll wait just another minute or so.
All right, I'll be right back.
Sure. You all can see the screen that says Our Community, Our Health, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Appreciate the PhD students with us and postdoc.
Woohoo.
There's Bryn. We'll get started in just a minute. All right. I think we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to this national town hall meeting, Our Community, Our Health, that Health Street at University of Florida sponsors every month. Health Street is a community engagement program of the Clinical and Translational Science Institute and the Department of Epidemiology at the University of Florida. Our mission is to reduce healthcare and health research disparities and inequities, and to engage our stakeholders in the area and in Florida as a whole in being active participants in research. Our community health workers go out into the community and talk to people and do a health assessment and find out things like their living conditions, social determinants of health, such as food insecurity, and social support and lifetime health histories. Mental health history, including depression and anxiety, medication use, and also drug use are assessed. Community health workers then provide people with education and with referrals to services that they might need. Today, our community, Our Health is being conducted in partnership with the College of Public Health and Health Professions Wellness Initiative. And I'm Dr. Striley, I'm Kathy Striley. I have a position as co-director of Health Street. I also want to say that Beatrice Doristel, who is our operations director, is with us. And we, at this time, in connection with the College of Public Health and Health Professions, we want to introduce the panel to you and let you know basically what we're going to do. I'm going to make some brief introductory remarks and show you just a little bit of the research that we've been conducting here, as well as some research that comes out of a national sample of colleges. And then we'll basically be open for questions. So let me let you know about Dr. Nicholas Green, and if my slides will advance. And Dr. Green is the Assistant Wellness Director for the College of Public Health and Health Professions. And I'm not going to read all of this to you, you can read it, but his PhD is in psychology, and he specializes in the science of human behavior and its application to individual health, behavior change, and workplace health and wellness. It's also my real pleasure to introduce Lisa Merlot Green. Dr. Green is an associate professor in the Department of Psychiatry at the College of Medicine and a licensed clinical psychologist. She's the director of the wellness program for the College of Medicine and is assistant residency program director for psychotherapy, where she does a lot of education and teaching of residents, students, and health professionals. She's also the director of research for the Professionals Research Network, the state monitoring program for distressed and impaired health professionals. As a member of the Motivational Interviewing Network of Trainers, she trains people in motivational interviewing. And again, I'm not going to read all of that. We'll put this on the screen and you can look at it again. But just to finish my own introduction, I'm a psychiatric epidemiologist. And one thing that Dr. Green and I share is the MPE after our names, and that's a master's in psychiatric epidemiology from Washington University in St. Louis College of Medicine, where we both did our postdoctoral training. in Psych Epi. So I've known Lisa for a long time, and it's my real pleasure that she accepted the invitation to be here with us. So we're here to talk about mental health, and hopefully we're here to talk about mental health in a way that makes sense to people as a part of life, not as some strange thing that's over in the corner where we don't want to talk about it and we want to think that it's totally separate from our humanity. This is a global map, and the prevalence here I'm not going to pay much attention to, but the prevalence of anxiety disorder according to this reinterpretation of a lot of data, including data from epidemiological studies, surveys, and some regression modeling that they did, meta-regression modeling, said that that was, the prevalence was about 6.64% for anxiety disorders in the US. Similarly, again, another reinterpretation of the data showed that depression, current depression in the US was about 5%, 4.81%. Now the data, this is probably going to look more like data that you have seen, and this came from NAMI, and I put it on twice just so you could see it was from NAMI. But what we know as mental health professionals, as psychologists, as psychiatric epidemiologists, is that about 20% of people are going to be experiencing a mental illness at some time. And you can see that that's current, 20%, 19% of all adults have any mental illness. We have a lot of other data that shows that really 1 in 2 people in their lifetime are going to experience some kind of a mental health problem. So again, very common and not at all out of our norms. What's going on with college students? Well, this is information from some work that some of my students that are on this call have done with the data out of the University of Michigan and the American College Health Association. And this is a survey that looks at colleges all over the US, a few in Canada, and actually a few internationally that have American students. And they showed that there was an increase in mental health problems over the last years, with 12% of university students reporting being diagnosed or treated for depression in 2015, and 15% for anxiety disorder. And you'll see at the bottom here that 94% of directors of university counseling centers say severe mental illnesses on campuses are increasing. Medication use is also increasing. What's going on in terms of mental health with COVID? That's pre-COVID, and I'm going to flip back and forth for a second. But we have results from China that indicate that people who've been locked down in their homes, mitigating the spread of COVID-19 or subject to stress from COVID-19, about 50% are reporting moderate to severe psychological impacts from the pandemic. More than 1 in 4 reported moderate to severe symptoms of anxiety, and 1 in 6 of depression. And among youth, we know that confinement has led to an increase in symptoms of mental health problems, and we know that frontline healthcare workers have had more problems. So back to our college student sample. And again, thanks to Sarah Nutley, who's on this call, who's a PhD student in epidemiology and a master's student in biostatistics, who put together these charts. And they show that from the year 2007 to 2018-19, depression, severe depression, has been increasing among college students. Been a little bit irregular, but generally 2007, 26.4, 35.1% by 18-19. Similarly, for severe anxiety, we see an even greater increase from 12.9% at the beginning of the trend of the years here to 30.8% by 2018-19. So, just setting the stage, again, this is pre-COVID. Pre-COVID, symptoms of mental health problems among college students have been increasing over the last decade. Now for a look just a little bit into our community in terms of what's going on under the COVID, again, mitigation efforts and the pandemic. Health Street, like many of the university's research operations, had to shift and pivot very quickly into work in the community. And we didn't want to lose the trust of the community, and we wanted to be there for the community. So we began a campaign of calling all of the people that are in our 12,000 member registry. And we got approval from the IRB to do so and to do a survey of what's going on in terms of their mental health. And so we started March 24th. This just shows that we've completed, it's now up to about 2,500 people in that survey. And again, same thing. So one of the things we've asked is, are you stressed? Is COVID causing more stress? Are you feeling more lonely? And unfortunately, we hadn't asked just stress and loneliness in the beginning to compare this to, but what I wanted to show you here was that if you think about what kind of stress or loneliness would be going on with you, if somebody said to you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how stressed are you? You know, I'd probably be inclined to kind of, you know, maybe say 5 or 6. I wouldn't, it would be hard to say a really extreme number. So if you look at this, you can see that over 20% of people are saying that they're at an 8, a 9, or a 10 level of stress. Similarly, for loneliness, it's a little bit less, but we're still looking here at about 12 to 14% of the people saying that during COVID, they're experiencing a rather severe amount of stress or loneliness. Food insecurity is also a problem, and we were giving out food at Health Street when we could, but we're certainly continuing to watch that. And past 30-day opioid use as well. This is among those who completed. 15% of the people who completed our survey had opioid use at their baseline, which is telling us that the people who are completing our survey are less likely to be the people who had opioid use. So we're missing them. This slide is all about who are we missing when we try to reconnect? Who do we really need to make extra efforts to connect with during all this stress of COVID? So some of the things we want to talk about, and we want to take your questions, include coping with COVID. If it's causing more stress, if it's causing more loneliness, if we're not even able to reach people on the phone who are having more extreme symptoms, how do you cope? And again, we have some real experts with us who are going to give us their ideas and their thoughts about that. And secondly, if you're experiencing some symptoms, how do you know the difference between what's a mental health problem and what's really a symptom of COVID? And then finally, when does a problem reach an actionable level? When is the symptoms that someone you love or someone you know or you are experiencing, and that what does it look like when it tells you this is really at the level where you need to reach out for some help? And there's some crisis information here. There are so many good resources on the College of Medicine wellness page that Dr. Green manages, and the wellness page for the College of Public Health and Health Professions that Dr. Tara Sabo Atwood is the director of, and again, Dr. Green, Nicholas Green, is the assistant director of. So I would refer you to both of those pages. And this is from our Health Street newsletter. And if you put your name in chat, we will make sure, your email in chat, we will make sure you get all of those resources. So I'm going to go back here a little bit. Okay, so how am I going to keep you apart? I'm just going to say Dr. Lisa Green and Dr. Nicholas Green.
You can use Merlot for me either
Okay.
way. I'm also fine with Lisa, but
Yeah, Nick is fine with me. Nick and
Okay.
Lisa.
So we've thought about the fact that this is that it's really common for people to be experiencing symptoms at any time. And then we've got this pandemic that's going on, and the mitigation efforts that a lot of people are saying that's even worse, the mitigation. And I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what you think are some of the best efforts to reduce some of the stress caused either by the pandemic or mitigation in general. And we'll start with Lisa Merlot.
All right, thank you. Well, first, it's really a pleasure to be here. Thank you for including me in this presentation. I think it has good potential to be really helpful to people, and I hope you'll take what you learned today and share it with others in your life. So I think the answer to that question is somewhat individualized. It really depends on what the person is going through. So, there are some individuals where the main stressor is isolation because maybe they live alone, for example, or if there are people who live in Gainesville, they've come here for school or for work and they've moved away from family and friends and their support system and now have a much harder time or are completely unable to go back and visit with their family and their friends. They're not able sometimes to be able to meet new people because, a lot of the orientation type activities and other social events have been canceled or changed in a very significant way. And so for individuals where the isolation is really a primary driver of the stress, then obviously an important component is going to be finding other creative ways to have a support network available to you. And sometimes that can be relying on technology to maintain your relationships with people who've been important to you in the past. And we do have a number of resources on the College of Medicine Wellness page. So I'll put the link in the chat after I'm done speaking here so people can access that. But in addition to that, finding a support network locally as well is important. So if you do live alone, for example, or you don't know many people, finding a close network of a handful of people who you would think of as sort of your household, right? So they may be other individuals who live alone or live in a home with two other people, something like that. And so if you can find a group that's sort of enclosed within itself of up to maybe 5 people and count that as your household, even if you're not necessarily living within the same home, that can be a really valuable strategy to help you sort of have a local support network. Of course, loneliness is not the only issue. So for a lot of people, it's they're out of work right now. They've been laid off or they're having a hard time finding a job, or they have their job still, but their hours are cut significantly, or it's a service job where, a lot of their income is based on tips or other things that have been significantly decreasing. And so in those situations, there are obviously some specific problem solving tasks that you can try in terms of, signing up for some of the available benefits, looking for ways to deal with food insecurity. If you have children, for example, making use of the Alachua County school food distribution resources, things like that. But, that in itself is not necessarily sufficient, and that stress continues for a lot of people. And so, again, looking for ways that you can reach out to resources or talk to others who've been in a different situation, in a similar situation, and, look for resources like Health Street that can connect you to other community resources or programs or services that can help to meet some of those needs, at least in the short term, while you continue looking for ways to supplement income. If the issue, and this is the last thing I'll say so that Nick can jump in, and then if it needed to come back to me, that's fine too, but I don't want to overdo my part here. If the issue is really related to developing serious mental health symptoms, so if you're starting to experience more anxiety or depression or panic or other things like that, or if this is something you've struggled with in the past and you're noticing a recurrence, then certainly it's a really important time to reach out and continue your mental health care, or to initiate mental health care if this is new for you. And I know that there are many people who are nervous about taking that initial step. It can feel a little bit scary. Many people feel like, I don't think it's that bad. I don't think it's severe enough that I really need to do this now. And if I just wait it out, maybe it'll get better on its own. And I would say if you take nothing else from me today, my primary message, and I really want to emphasize this, is at the very moment when you first consider, I wonder if I should get help for this, that is the best moment to reach out for so many reasons. The first is that you can prevent the escalation of the symptoms, the severity of the condition, by addressing it early. That's the most important, because if you can sort of cut it back right at the beginning, it decreases the amount of time you need to spend in treatment. It decreases the cost of treatment if there's a cost associated with it. It decreases the consequences associated with the condition. And it, most importantly, decreases the suffering that you'll experience. If you can address the symptoms and the condition right away, you just have such a better chance for a very successful outcome and feeling so much better, so much quicker. Now, the next thing related to that is many people are concerned because they wonder, how can I fit this into my life? I'm very busy right now. Maybe you are trying to work and balance kids at home, balance school, things like that. One of the great things, if you can say that there's any positives to COVID, is that it's really expanded the telehealth services that are available to people. And so you can actually access mental health care within your own home, or, you know, sitting in a McDonald's parking lot if you don't have your own access to internet. You know, there are so many ways that you can access care that don't involve travel, that don't involve the expense of taking time off of work, that just can fit into your life so much easier. And then another thing, another benefit is that there are many more services available for free or low cost now. There are a number of different organizations that are providing mental health services, particularly crisis services, to people for free or for very low cost. And so I would say take advantage of those resources while you can. And again, I think what anyone would find is that they would benefit immediately and significantly. And it's, you know, well over 95% of people I know who do reach out for help say, I wish I'd done it sooner. So I'll stop there for a moment. Let Nick jump in.
Thank you. I think that the message is really a really important one, though. You're saying from your training and all the motivational interviewing and everything, that time for action in a person is when it occurs to them that hesitating may mean the difference between getting help at all and not getting help. So is in addition to all the other benefits that you named. So that was a message that I agree with you. I hope that if they heard you say that, they heard you say anything, they heard you say that. Dr. Nicholas Green.
Right, thank you. I think Lisa set me up well there with a couple of her points, but to echo Lisa's gratitude, I'm very appreciative of being on this panel here. But I like that Lisa just started off with looking at how everybody's individualized, right? We all have our own, learning histories. We all have our own experiences with research, being on campus, being in the community. So I kind of like that as just a general framework. So then when we look at, the 6 kind of categories here on the screen of taking breaks, connecting with others, it's really, I think, looking at, okay, what's my history with all of these things? How is everything, happening right now, right? Maybe I'm in the best shape of my life, but I feel lonely, right? Maybe I'm good at goal setting, but I'm too much on the news, and that's, creating my stress and anxiety. So really, looking at the individual person here, we want to look at like, what are all those antecedents, if you will, right? What are those things that come before that stress and anxiety? What are those cues and triggers, right? So I know if I'm, I have my phone on right here. If I know if it's face down, I'm good. I don't see any alerts. My stress levels, well handled, right? It's a silly example, but those things, those cues in our environment around us will, add up. So then when something big happens, right, we have to go and, talk to a mental health professional, right? Those are how things happen. Now, if I look at things from a behavioral lens again, so we have our individual histories here. I think these 6 categories of, coping strategies, we can almost prioritize them, right? So something that might be most important to me would be my expertise and background is in health and fitness behavior change. So probably taking care of my body is probably going to be more important to me, and that's just Nick Green, right? Lisa Merlot Green could have, connecting with others could be most important. So I think building, right, we see a very kind of prescriptive approach sometimes. So really thinking about, okay, we see these 6 things. Maybe I need to work on goal settings. Let's prioritize here. What's most important to me? So then you take something like we could use connecting with others, if that's kind of the theme here with the data that Dr. Striley presented, is that, okay, if I'm not feeling connected, okay, that's my score. That's an 8 out of 10 or whatever it is. Okay, what are those small actionable behavioral pieces that I can engage in that would lead me to a situation where I'm feeling, more connected to others? So is it right, something small like, do I need to just call my grandma once a week? Do I need to meet in person with somebody following social distancing guidelines? Whatever that looks like for you, right? It's just those small kind of actionable steps of, okay, connecting is important. What are the things that I can do? And then always just check in, with yourself day to day, week to week. Okay, maybe it's a 5-minute phone call or an email to a professor, feeling more connected on campus. Maybe it's having a virtual, virtual happy hour, right? We're all on Zoom. We don't go to bars together, but maybe just having a social drink with colleagues and friends that could make you feel more connected, right? And so just taking that kind of individualized approach and breaking it down. And then as I think oftentimes, right, we presented 6 buckets of things, right? We have 10 things. We need to do it all at once. We all know this is a marathon. So just, I think, being patient with yourself with the process, that we can work on these small pieces. I'll work on my physical health and well-being. I know that's going to carry over to, success in the workplace. And then, of course, if you don't have a job, that's priority number 1, right? So what are those steps you can do to, alleviate some of those stresses? So I would just add kind of those pieces of having an individualized approach, prioritizing what makes sense for you, and then looking at what are those small behaviors that you can engage in that could really tell you that you're leading in the right direction to eliminate, those types of stressors.
So I think one of the things, go ahead.
I was just going to piggyback one more comment that I think Nick was really bringing up as important. In clinical psychology, we distinguish between 2 different types of coping. So there's problem-focused coping, and then there's emotion-focused coping. And many people are familiar with like the serenity prayer, that idea of grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that's really what this refers to, is when you're looking at your stressors, are there things that you can actively do something about? Is there problem-solving coping you can engage in to address some of these issues? So for example, if you are needing a job, then you can work on trying to find a job or trying to find other ways that you can earn some income. There are other stressors that you can't control, right? So we can't personally control, the way that politicians are behaving necessarily. So a problem-solving approach there might be taking a break from the news, but an emotion coping approach might be changing the way that you respond to situations or stimuli that are distressing to you. So are there things in your life that you allow yourself to stress about unnecessarily that you could change the way that you're viewing it, right? So that's where you might hear about things like finding a silver lining or making lemons out of lemonade or those kinds of things. And that can work in certain situations. It's harder to do if you're already feeling very anxious or very depressed. It's hard to see the positive. That's where sometimes getting some social support can come into play and be helpful in helping you identify some of those positive sides. But also where strategies like mindfulness and meditation can be very, very effective. And so if this isn't something that you've had experience with or attempted in the past, again, on that resource list that I sent out, there are a number of free online and phone app-based resources available that can help guide you through some introductory meditative or mindfulness-based practices. And again, this, I know there's a lot of people who feel hesitant to try this. It can kind of feel a little hokey to some people, or people who don't consider themselves to be particularly spiritual in their, life experience. That's really not what mindfulness and meditation need to be about. It's more about your approach to the day, your approach to your life, and trying to focus on the present and what's in front of you right now. And are there things happening right now that you can enjoy? And are there things happening right now that you need to address? And can you avoid spending a lot of your day in what we call time travel, where instead of experiencing what's actually happening, maybe you're with some friends, or maybe you are, in class, or maybe you are with your kids or whatever it might be, and you're not really able to appreciate and enjoy the experience because you're too busy either worrying about something that may or may not happen in the future, or ruminating about something that happened in the past. And neither of those things are happening right now, but they're ruining your mood right now. They're ruining your experience of right now. And so that's what mindfulness is about. It's teaching you how to be present right now so that you can enjoy the many minutes that make up your life and not waste so many of them, again, with unnecessary suffering.
And I know I've heard people talk about the fact that with COVID, they're alone with their thoughts more than pre-COVID, and that has caused them more problems as they've had more of that guinea pig in a wheel effect in their brain, or monkey mind, or whatever you want to call it. And certainly mindfulness is a powerful tool to help us with that. There was a related question about cabin fever and distinguishing cabin fever from depression and anxiety. And that sort of moves us into this whole realm of when is it that our coping has broken down, and when is it that it's more than that? And maybe we're really experiencing some symptoms where, as you said before, Dr. Merlot-Green, we really need to be motivated to get help. Any thoughts on that?
I can talk again.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, so again, our moods and our experiences are somewhat like the weather, right? So most of us have an overall climate, and then you have sort of your day-to-day fluctuations. And so you might have a sunny day, and then a partly cloudy day, and then a rainy day, but your overall climate is stable and, not hurricanes. And, that's to be expected. All of us are going to have challenges that come up, a stressor, you have a test coming up, or, there's some other issues that are temporary and time limited, and, we can deal with them. When you start to notice that your weather pattern is really changing, and it's more and more rainy days or cloudy days, or, some of these more severe events, that's when I would say you definitely want to consider reaching out for help. That's when it becomes a clear sign that things are going in the wrong direction, and it's better to try and turn it around now versus waiting until you're dealing with what were they calling them, fire tornadoes and everything else. Cabin fever is real, and cabin fever can be something that contributes to the development of a depressive disorder, for example, or even an anxiety disorder. But, it will feel a little bit different in terms of the stability and also the intensity. And so if you find that you're feeling cabin fever and you can address it by doing something fun, right? So you plan some pleasant activity, you have a Zoom party, or you figure out some other way to socialize safely, or you get out of the house and go for a walk in the woods, or ride your bike, or whatever else that can kind of break just the monotony of being stuck and that feeling of being stuck inside. If you do that and you feel better, then that's a pretty good signal for you that, you know, you're still probably just dealing with some weather abnormalities, as opposed to if you can't even get out of your house, you know, you can't even get up the energy to contact a friend to see if they would like to meet on Zoom, or the thought of getting dressed and putting on your shoes to go for a walk in the woods is too much. That means you're well beyond just cabin fever. And that's when it really would be important to make sure that you're getting some treatment.
It was a wonderful metaphor, and I'm sure you've shared that before as readily as that came to your mind, but that was really helpful. Thank you for clarifying that.
And I would add that, yeah, you kind of look at like that cabin fever, like on a scale. You could have like a day to day, you could have a week to week, a month to month, right? It's I have friends that have been working at home, and you can almost think of like, what are the events that are leading up to the point at which I feel stir crazy or have cabin fever. And it's like, well, if I know that if I go 3 to 4 days without changing up my environment, without changing the stimulus conditions, if you will, getting out of the house, right? If I know, okay, if I go 2 to 3 days without getting out, doing some type of, I don't know, mini road trip to the gas station or something silly like that. But when you come back, oh, it's kind of like a reset. Oh, I realized that was the behavior I needed to engage in. That actually made me feel better. It didn't matter that I went to the gas station. It's that I did something and changed it to where now, you know, I feel less, you know, stressed about getting out and feeling stir crazy. You know, but even leading up to any type of, you know, mental diagnosis to, you know, to be diagnosed, or, you know, chronic depression, you know, I think about too, like, what are those, what I would call like precursor behaviors? What are the things that are happening that might be indicative that I might have to be more aware of or self-monitor myself, that like, okay, I know, like at the end of the day, my patience might not be, you know, as long as it is at the beginning of the day. I may be less sharp. And so when something simple like, you know, a friend says, hey, I need you to do this, and for some reason, let's say you snap back at them, you're like, well, what are the conditions that led up to that really bad precursor behavior, right? It's okay, I was maybe sleep deprived, I had a long day at work, I had a bad commute, and I'm really hungry, right? So all those kind of setting events really on kind of that daily 8-hour schedule, like, oh, well, had I been well rested, well, you know, had started my day, the sun was shining, you know, those types of things, right? I would say I'd be less likely to snap at my friends and engage in like these kind of precursor, because you could kind of spiral, right? Like I get mad, you have an argument, you slam the door, you know, then you peel off and you hit a car, right? It's like, what, you know, before the whole Pandora's box of stuff happens, it's, oh, okay, what led me to that first thing? It's like, how did I get over here, right? Can't see my hand, it's disappearing in the in the bell tower there, but you know, how do we get over there? And just really kind of, you know, be aware of like, okay, this is not me, right? It's what are the events that kind of contribute to this, and then we can start, you know, working backwards to that root cause.
So I think it's really cultural for us to talk about this kind of self-knowledge that we're sharing.
Mm-hmm.
That you know, we've in majority culture in the United States, we've all been taught to stop and say, okay, well, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? You know, what's going on? And many of us, I won't say all of us because it's not true, but many of us learn some tools in how to do that sort of self-check in the course of a day or in the course of a week. I just want to throw out a couple things that I think are really helpful for people who maybe struggle a little bit more with that. One actually comes from academia, and it's this idea of having a Sunday meeting and stopping, you know, everything you're doing, and Sunday sitting down and really taking the time to review what happened the week before, to review where you're trying to go, to review the things that are on your schedule and the things that you really need to put on your schedule in order to do some of the things we've been talking about that were positive. And in the process of spending time with yourself and with your life, and looking at your goals and how you're actually spending your time, sometimes that's helpful. Another thing I think is really helpful are mind maps. And that's a visual representation of kind of the chaos that's going on in all of our heads, and stopping. And sometimes what I do with the mind map when I know I'm out of sorts, but I don't know why or what's going on, is I'll just put a question mark in the middle of a paper, and then I'll start drawing some rounded limbs and putting some leaves of events and things on them, and just spend some time with myself exploring what's going on. I think that also goes back to some mindfulness techniques, and for some of us, I'm a fairly busy person, and I have no trouble with meditating anymore. It's a part of my life, but when it was, I had to walk. So walking meditation, doing labyrinths, things like that came to just Tai Chi came easier to me, to help me kind of get in touch with, let's just quiet everything down and find out, you know, where am I right now? What am I feeling? What am I thinking? What am I worried about? What am I, what's really going on in my life that's causing me to be out of sorts?
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up about different forms of meditation, because it's so important that if someone try a particular strategy and it doesn't fit for them, that you don't give up, because there are so many different ways to engage in mindfulness and meditation. It can be walking, like you said. A lot of people find running to be a very meditative behavior, dancing, playing music, journaling, creating art. You know, there are just so many different ways. It doesn't have to be sitting cross-legged on a mat, you know, with your eyes closed, focused on your breath. For a lot of people, that's the best way to do it, but that's definitely not the best way for everyone. And I would also say, for even the people who prefer to do a seated meditation, no one that I've ever met thought they were doing it well to start. This is not something that is easy. It feels like it should be, because you feel like I'm not doing anything, but it's very hard to not do lots of things. That's what we spend all of our life doing these days. We're always multitasking. And this is about trying to break that habit and just focus on doing one thing at a time. And so if you try it and you say, that was miserable, I completely failed, you know, it was awful, that probably means you were doing it right. So I would encourage you, keep trying, because it does get easier and more effective the more you practice. And I would say start off very small, you know, try it for 2 minutes. Don't try it for 30 minutes to start. And then another really, really important thing that comes into this is practicing gratitude. And so Kathy, you were talking about like the mind maps and things, and that reminded me, you know, journaling can be such an important and useful tool for lots of people. And the way that you journal is also very individualistic. But one of the most effective things that you can do, anyone can do, that takes 2 minutes a day, is just right before bed, writing down 3 things that you're grateful for from that day. Something that you appreciated, something that went well, something positive. And what it does is it actually changes the way that you approach your day moving forward. So what you'll find is when you first try this exercise, it's pretty tough the first couple days to come up with 3 things sometimes. And you kind of have to sit there and really think about it. But what you'll notice is by the time you get to day 4, day 5, day 6, is during your day, you'll go, oh, that's something I can write down tonight. And that's so important, because what it does is it allows us to recognize the things that are happening in our day that are positive, whereas otherwise we tend to just blow past them, and you know, we don't stop and smell the roses, so to speak. And so this is a way of sort of priming your brain to notice and to appreciate the good things, which can have a very significant impact on your mood. And in fact, there's been research done showing that if people do this just for 2 weeks, that a year later, the impact on their mood is the equivalent to taking antidepressant medication. It's that powerful of an effect. So,
and one of our participants put that in the chat too, practicing gratitude. You said gratitude, they said thankfulness. So yeah, absolutely. Nicholas, if you don't mind, I'm going to change our topic a little bit.
Oh, sure.
And move us into this notion of how do we handle it when somebody, it's not us, but it's someone we love or someone we care for, or someone we live with in a dorm, but someone or someone who we share an apartment with out in the community, who we really start noticing some signs. What do you recommend we do?
I think it would be good to, I mean, you have to kind of take inventory on what, if it looks bad to you, then it, you know, definitely refer out to whatever resource you have, right? And then, you know, can you, you know, notice something small like a precursor behavior and say like, whoa, and recommend kind of like a replacement behavior. Like, I'm not sure I would handle the situation that way. Again, if I use kind of snapping at your friends or hanging up on the phone, you can maybe unpack, okay, you know, a lot of what we're talking about here is just humans. We need to problem solve just a little bit better, right? How do we not watch so much news if we're doing problem-based coping or emotion-based coping, right? So I think really just looking at, okay, all of us have our strengths and weaknesses. All of us can provide some type of, you know, we can use our strengths and whatever it is. I'm a very patient person. I'm really good at listening. So maybe my strength I can meet people with is, okay, just tell me about what's going on, and then maybe I can help out. So I think, you know, being the best support that we can for each other based on like our own individual strengths, and then noticing at some point, of course, like using the example in the beginning of the talk here, it's like, maybe that person can't, that's too big of a leap to refer themselves to an agency. You know, when we said, you know, I wonder if I need help. Okay, maybe monitor that person. Maybe they made a verbal statement out loud, or maybe they communicate differently. You're noticing it. It really is wonder if I need help. You know, you can maybe support somebody and say, okay, I can go with you. It seems like this. I can make a phone call. Here's a list of numbers. So I think there's some other small behaviors that we can engage in to support others. You know, when it comes to.
So some very what I'm hearing from you is very behavioral and very practical. Watch what you actually see happening, and when you see a behavior, then you can point out that behavior to a person. And then in order to help somebody get help, sometimes it's those little practical steps, going with them, making the phone call, helping them find out where to go, that can be the most powerful.
Yeah, I think that, you know, people's actions are obviously probably the most salient. Those are the most obvious of like, oh yeah, I'm you know, throwing things. I'm very angry. You know, those types of things. But sometimes you get those verbal statements of like, oh, okay, this is something bad. I need to attend to that. Or you've made, you know, this other person has made, just say they made one statement a week or a month about harming themselves. Or I don't want to live anymore. Like, okay, you said that now 2 weeks in a row. Okay, this seems to be a pattern. Let's talk about this. So following, you know, both the actions and the, you know, what people are saying, because you can say a lot, hey, I'm going to go run into the street, but then if they never do it, right, what's that kind of say-do correspondence? But again, monitoring both is, you know, with caring and compassion is the most important thing.
I would say too, you know, don't be afraid to talk to people that you care about. You know, this is really the big barrier, is people don't want to be intrusive. They don't want to offend someone. They don't want to, you know, be weird or awkward. Those things are not important, right? Sometimes you're talking about life and death. And so don't be afraid. If you care about this person, would you rather feel awkward for a couple minutes or have something really terrible happen to them? You know, and I'm not trying to be over dramatic, but I think it's important to really consider the gravity of the situation in certain circumstances, particularly because when you are in the depth of pretty severe mental illness, or when you're having significant symptoms, you can't see it for yourself. You often don't recognize how badly you're doing. You know, you need sometimes someone on the outside to say, you know, Lisa, you haven't seemed like yourself. Are you okay? Really? How are you doing for real? You know, and just an open-ended question like that, and giving them the opportunity to say something, and they may blow you off, and that's okay, because what you've done then is you've started the conversation, and that means you can ask them again, right? And so if they say, no, I'm fine, and things don't seem to change, then you can come back and say, hey, you know, I know you said that you're fine, but I'm still worried about you. You just don't seem like your normal self. And recognizing again that, you know, as their friend, there are things that you can say that are really helpful. And they primarily include, I care about you. What do you need from me? Like those are really the two most important things to convey.
So
I'm
again,
worried about you. I care about you. And what do you need from me? And if they're not, you know, receptive to your conversation and you really are concerned, go beyond them. You know, you can talk to your RA, you can call their parents, you can reach out to the counseling and wellness center, you can, you know, call a crisis hotline and tell someone else. You as the friend do not need to take this on yourself if this is beyond what you can, you know, handle, which in most cases it would be, because most people are not licensed healthcare professionals, right? Licensed mental health professionals. So I would just say, don't be afraid of the conversation. We're not afraid to talk to our friends about other health issues. There's no reason to be afraid to bring up these things. And, you know, it's very rare that anyone would have a negative response to someone expressing concern. And especially if you're someone that they know cares about them and loves them and wants what's best for them.
excellent, but two excellent answers. And I hope that everyone is paying a lot of attention, because as you said, it could be life or death. And the life you save may be someone very close to you. So in terms, one more thought that someone raised a question about that sort of related to survivor's guilt. Like if I'm doing okay, and this is like not a problem for me, and maybe I'm even doing better. I've heard some people say, gosh, I'm so glad to be able to be at home, and this is just great, and I'm an introvert, so I'm really happy. How is there any advice that you have for somebody who's having that kind of an experience when they're interacting with other people who are not having a good time?
You mean as it relates to survivor's guilt, or just not
Well,
having a
just
good time?
I don't know what else to call it, but just feeling guilty that like you're coping really well, but somebody else probably is having a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I don't have anything specific, but the first thing that comes to mind is that we all have our own individual, you know, background and history. We're all fighting our own fight, right? We don't know what anybody else is going through, so you know, maybe we you know, we all survive. Let's say we all get COVID, and some of us survive, some of us don't, right? So we have survivor's guilt there, and you know, there's just different. You know, a death is going to affect somebody differently, and you know, people cope differently. So, yeah, it's just being patient and just being supportive with each other. That's all I can kind of think about right now.
Yeah, I'll kind of take the flip side of just, you know, not so much dealing with someone who's had a personal loss, but what I've heard some people say is even just there are people grieving so many things, right? So some people are grieving the loss of a loved one who's died, but other people are grieving the fact that they can't go to concerts anymore, or they didn't get to have a graduation ceremony, or they had to cancel their wedding, or, you know, just small things, the people who miss getting their hair cut or whatever it might be. And so when you hear a lot of that grief around you and you are feeling, you know, fortunate in that maybe you haven't had a lot of the cancellations, right? And maybe you are having the benefits of an alternate work location, like you mentioned, that there can be some feelings of guilt that bubble up. What I would say is, rather than focusing on feeling guilty, focus on what that allows you to do that other people can't do. So if you are doing well, how can you use that to help support the people in your life who aren't? Are there things that you can pick up for them, right? Like, are there loads that you can help carry for them? And it may mean errands or tasks or things, but it may just mean that you are a person who actually has the energy right now to listen to your friends who are not doing well. And a lot of their friends don't, right? So that's something that you can contribute that is vitally important right now that you have the energy and maybe the time and the, just the lack of your own distress that allows you to be a listening ear, or allows you to say, oh gosh, if you're really needing someone to hang out with, I can do that. Or maybe you can help bring them some food, or maybe you can, help them deal with some other issue that's going on in their life. And so use it as a positive thing. And also kind of think of it like a bank account in some ways, that there's going to be opportunities for deposits and withdrawals when it comes to stress in our lives and when it comes to supporting other people in our lives. So, maybe there have been lots of times in your life, or maybe there've not, but maybe there are times, or will be times, or have been times where you were the one who is more stressed out and other people were there for you and supported you. It's not like you resented them for not going through what you're going through. And so don't put that on yourself. Try to avoid mind reading that other people are going to be mad at you or resentful of you if you're not doing well. And instead, use it as your opportunity to be a good friend to them.
So be a resource, and don't put guilt trips on yourself for any reason, but especially not for something like this that you're experiencing some goodness. Okay, we are really very close to being out of time. Dr. Nicholas Green, I want to give you a minute to say anything that you want to say to our audience.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think just if and when, when the pandemic hopefully, winds down, I take kind of the behavioral approach. And I think the combination of what we talked about today of, looking at how we can either solve problems or, look at how our emotions are responding to the environment around us, that if we can, attend to more of like all those small things that add up to, small problems and maybe bigger problems, we can just work backwards and look at what's happening around us and look at what we can control. And really, again, if when it comes to survivor's guilt, like what we're talking about, is like, okay, this person's reacting that way over there, but I know I can change my own behavior. I can control what I'm doing, not so much what other people are doing. So just looking at how our behavior is influenced by the environment around us, attend to those pieces, and I think you'll be good to go.
Thank you very much, Dr. Green. And Dr. Merlot Green, you get the last word.
Oh, great. I would just say that this has been an interesting and challenging experience for everyone across the globe, and in different ways for different people. And that, everybody's kind of heard these terms being thrown around like a new normal, and I don't like new normal. I don't think this is normal, but it's a new experience. And, in general, human beings are very resilient. And so this is an opportunity for us to continue practicing our resilience as we, on a daily basis, are dealing with a new experience. And it is sort of new from week to week even. The information changes, the regulations change, the expectations change. And so if you kind of think of it as not so much I have to get through this to the end point, but again, having more of a mindfulness based approach, which is, what can I do with this time? Are there things that I can take away from this experience that may benefit me? Are there ways that I can use this opportunity to focus on some things that maybe were getting neglected before? For many people, our lives are so busy that they just kind of flew past. And so this was an opportunity to kind of slow down and think about prioritizing maybe differently. What does really matter? What do you want to focus your time and your energy on? Where do you want to put your effort? And so I'm hopeful that that's something that people will take with them, even when, hopefully we're not dealing with the pandemic as a primary issue on the front of our mind forever, but that hopefully we will take with us that idea of it's okay to choose what really is important to you, and it's okay to prioritize for yourself what really matters, and take a little bit of these expectations from society about what you need to accomplish or what you need to be doing with your time, and think more individually about what you want to accomplish and what you want to do with your time and how you want to spend your life. And I think that's it.
Thank you very much. I so appreciate both of you being here and sharing your wisdom. I think this is a live stream that I'm going to watch and listen to again to remind myself there's a lot of good here. And thank you to UF College of Public Health and Health Professions Wellness Program for co-sponsoring this with Health Street. And thank you to all of our participants, and have a good afternoon and a wonderful weekend. Thank you.
Everybody.
Thanks, Kathy.